The SVB bank collapse. Oh, you're going to love
It's
this
very
one.
recent. You gotta tell me about this.
This is very recent. So look, again, this podcast is being videoed on the 13th of March. So things, whenever this gets out, things could evolve and escalate. But SVB is Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes.
So it's the premier
Yes.
bank in the US for venture capitalists and effectively startups, right?
Yeah.
It is the number one bank for that specific niche, right?
Yeah, it's
Collapsed. So how did it get to the collapse here? Well, I think there's a wider conversation, but let's run through the timeline just to establish things, right? SVB essentially made a bet in a couple of years ago. They put a lot of their funds and their bets to make revenue into government bank bonds, effectively, right? So they got it at the low rate that it was at the time, and they didn't anticipate for the Fed to increase the interest rate as aggressively as it did, which is happening not only in the US but
over
around
here
the
in
whole world.
Australia as well.
I mean, let's just talk about that. Were you shocked at the rate? I've lost track of the amount of interest rate rises we've got. So we're videoing this in Australia. It's 9-10 at the moment.
It's the 10th.
10th, right? Insane. I left for Europe last year, and I told a client, because I work in the finance industry, that I'd be shocked if it increased any more. 4 months later, and you had consecutive increases.
A lot of people are, I guess, having a refinance, and
Yeah.
if they can't refinance, they're defaulting on their loans, man. Like, it's not good.
It's crazy. So effectively, SVB, they put a big punt of 100 million specifically of the funds that they're getting from these VCs and these smaller, tech startups, effectively, thinking it's a sure bet. So look, you could say, hey, that's not financially prudent. I can't even get in there because it's way out of my spectrum to even make a level of commentary. But let's just park that to the side. So fast forward now, the valuation of these bonds are much less because of the rate that that's increased. So what happened is that now the valuation that they were expecting is significantly less.
Yeah.
So this compounding with the fact that the tech industry, because it's a Silicon Valley bank, it's not the bank of Joe Blow, are having tech layoffs for the reason of expenditure of cost. So things like, I mean, I don't know about your organization, but things like even like software subscriptions are under scrutiny. Like everything, people are looking under a microscope. And for the smaller, let's say the smaller tier of these organizations, they're withdrawing. So the fundamental aspect of a bank is to know that your funds are safe, right?
Yeah.
That when you withdraw it at any time, you can get, if I put 100 mil, you better believe 100 mil needs to be there. So during this time, the clientele, which are the fintechs of the world, are withdrawing at a much quicker rate, compounded by the fact that the bank has losses and they physically at a certain point do not have the funds. Yeah. So in terms of the dates, Wednesday, 8th of March, the company reached a point effectively where the valuation of these bonds, they took a massive loss, right? So announced a sale of a third of their ownership to get the cash flow. All right. So that's the 8th. The 9th, word gets out that the company is facing insolvency. Bank run. So this is why I thought this was FTX, because it's like, this is the parallel, right?
It is.
One's in the crypto, one's on this world. March the 10th, people are, of course, like once you hear the word insolvency, people are out. I'm out. Because you got to understand, like, these are fintech businesses that are already hurting. They're downgrading profits. They're letting people go. So cash flow is vital, right?
So did they get their money back?
Okay, so we're going to talk about that. So March 10th, people start withdrawing their money. And March 10th, the Fed comes in, you're out. This bank doesn't exist anymore. Bang. Wow. Bank run. They physically don't have the cash, right?
Shit.
So it on March 10th, it puts a lot of again, this is not in the same way FTX is the number one. Actually, sorry, my bad. FTX is a top 3. It's a big name, effectively. Yeah. SVB is that echelon of bank for fintechs, for startups, for venture capitalists, right? It's not mom and pop's bank over there, right? So, for example, Canva has money with. So these are big established companies, because you use, even if you have a good cash flow situation, if you go to a bank, it's like an extended line of credit, right? And this is money that you anticipate to receive, right?
So do you think that, like, be more layoffs or is it more cuts
Well,
now? They've lost all this money that's
There's
gone.
so much things. So this is today. So again, this is an escalating situation. But today on March the 13th, the Fed has stepped in to bail these guys out. So yes, okay. So we can go in here again.
Ooh.
So this hasn't been seen on the likes of the most like the bailouts that we had last time. So
Yeah.
this is huge. Yeah. This is actually in line with those sort of elements, the Big Short, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just in a different sphere of bank, right? So there's fundamentally questions to be asked here.
So, Big Short, was that like you're talking about the GFC?
Yeah.
Yes. Lehman Brothers.
So the GFC, because they got bailed out as well.
Yeah.
And people are saying that these guys are just too big not to succeed, right? So there's a morality question here. But just to note, the FDIC, which is the insurance that American banks have for their consumers, means that bank deposits are actually covered up until the value of $250K, right?
Yeah.
So forget about, let's just park, sorry, I jumped the gun, but let's park the fact that the bailout happened today. So prior to that, you're right, people were concerned. Holy crap, I've got like my 3 months of employee super or everything there. My burn rates there, I simply don't have it. What's going to happen here? And people are saying, don't worry about it. You got $250K up until insured by the law. And this is American law. So about that, this is not, again, Joe Blow's consumer bank.
No,
this is that. So of the institutions that banked with the SVB bank, only 3% of them have deposit sizes up until basically the vast majority are uncovered effectively. And so this is why the Fed stepped in and said, look, we got to help you guys out because there's going to be widespread ramifications depending on this if they don't step in. So
man,
that's a mouthful.
A lot of these startups will just be finished.
Really? Yeah. I think it just depends where you are at that curve. If you are at the more evolved curve, it is one element of cash flow. But if you're not, and it's 90% of your employee's salary comes from that or your cash flow there, you're wiped out. You're effectively wiped out. You don't exist. So that's a mouthful, but...
So you're saying, Canva would be somewhere late in the curve. They've already got there.
Yeah. So they're okay, but I just use that as an example to show
Canva's an Australian company.
It's an Australian company, but big companies also have, because it is the premier bank for VCs, cryptocurrency, anything that's tech related, which is the spectrum that we're talking about in the scene that already have cash flow problems to begin with, which is why you're getting these tech layoffs. It's insane. So the couple of things that like just stood out to me when I did a bit of research and started hearing about this. One is the parallels to FTX are just so close. So close.
Yeah.
I mean, you have mismanagement at the highest level. You have bank runs. And the thing about...
So what was the cause of this again? Like, what was the...
The cause of this is when things were going good, and I'm, again, just not necessarily in the bandwidth of that space to really give a very articulate sort of synopsis, but they made a bet that was wrong. Yeah, but to basically to get it down a little bit easier than that, when you make investment bets, you don't go as a financially prudent institution. You have to make investment bets to get the thing, right? Just kind of like what we're talking about AI and all that. But you don't bet the farm on it because you're doing that with other people's money.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? So they bet close to the farm on something that went down. So financially prudent individuals that had robust processes would say, you can't bet. I'm making stuff up. 70% of your investment on this, it needs to be 20, 10, 15. Yeah. So this is what happened. Effectively, they went all in on a strategy that dumped in. So the flip side is if they went all in and it went up, there'd be, and this is what happened for a period of time when everything was going up. And now everything is tightening down. And there's a part of me that's empathetic because reading in between the tea leaves, a lot of organizations are seeing, I think what's happened is the period of economic growth that the world has seen has made people soft. I mean, I don't know how you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, they haven't gone through the hard.
They've relaxed.
Yeah.
Like this is just an example. These are smart people here, right?
Yeah.
whether they're corrupt is another thing, but these are really smart individuals. You can't be just a Joe Blow off the street. But they've clearly in an environment where there was certain points in the cryptocurrency boom or even the stock boom that you didn't even have to research. You just put money there and it would go up, right? So if that's happening there, that just shows over time, of course, you're going to be a bit blasé about, you know what, let's bet all of it.
Well, the bubble's burst, really.
Yes,
it's burst.
A degree of
it. Now's the reality of the situation that's sinking in, right? Is that everything's not just rosy and you just put money on something and
exactly.
It's not as easy as that.
Exactly. And the whole mental element about a bank run. So a bank run, fundamentally, the banks in each institution are held in their regard because we're saying, trust the banks. Yeah. We will always have it there. Don't keep your money under the bed or something. Like we laugh. I know we laugh about that, but like the older folk would do that.
They would. I don't see a lot of people on TikTok. Man,
I do not
trust anyone.
Exactly. And this is why. So that's why the insurances are built for these banks to ensure that people have that trust there. Yeah. But if you think about it, like I'm speculating, and you got to speculate to get them clicks. But anyway, like if we go to our major institution banks and initiate a bank run, I'm really intrigued to see how many banks will have because.
What do you mean the Aussie banks?
I'm saying any consumer bank. If we start a hashtag and say take it out. Seriously, bank runs are insane because banks are obligated by law. That's why they're only big four in Australia because they're prudent regulations. And I think Australia is better than that. Like I do believe that, you know, famous last words that we have the financial rigors there. Yeah. But I'd really be intrigued to see if they could handle that strain. And this is how it all works. It's a combination of information. And what happened is once the word got out that the company was facing insolvency, much like FTX. Let's just assume that was a lie, that people were just spreading hearsay, that people still took it out. But the fact is it wasn't a lie and they couldn't handle the level. I mean, this is a really bad example, but sites like Ticketek, you know when Bruno Mars is coming, there's going to be a line, right? Yeah. So why the hell is it still out of order? It makes no sense. Do you not think that they could solve for that?
It's all money, right? It's in that case.
I get, but how much you spend? Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, in this same regard, you know, fundamentally, you need to have this amount of reserves. Yeah. Conceptually, you know that's the case. Yeah. It happening and you're reacting to it. This is one example of you can see that the institutions that we have placed our trust in don't necessarily have it all kind of together.
No, they don't.
Which is actually
that's scary as well.
Scary.
That's scary.
So the other thing is, fundamentally, when the Fed put out the statement here, they said that they were acting in the interest of the public, right?
Yeah.
And that it wouldn't affect the public. But the public are not fools. How else are they going to fund it? It's not like the Fed have, I don't know how much million we're talking about that they have to go to bail a bank out.
Well,
it's going to come in tax increases.
I guess this isn't as, like, I don't know if it is actually is as impactful as the GFC, the Lehman Brothers, Enron, all that crap. Yeah. Because that was very wide. They were giving out loans to people who couldn't afford them. But within the tech industry, it would be pretty massive, right? Because, I mean, if a lot of startups are now, like, I mean, obviously they got bailed out, but at that time they thought their money was gone.
Of course.
That would really deter a lot of people from getting into that industry.
But you can see from the perspective of average Joe Blow, right?
Yeah.
That there's already distrust and discord for governments across the world. It's not anywhere here. The thing is, when you look at the RBA in Australia talking about rate rise increases, they only have one dial to curb inflation. Yeah. It's not like they have two dials. No. It is one dial, right?
Stop spending money.
That's so their dial is to increase the interest rate.
Yeah.
So you know what? It's actually starting to affect me because I hate breakfast news, right? Because they just get the biggest sob stories. But like you hear that it's really affecting the average Joe Blow.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just think about this, right? Like, we're just talking here, interest rates in Australia. I mean, people got bought houses at interest rates at like 0.25.
Yeah.
Like, to go from that to like 4 or 5 right now, that's a lot of money.
It is.
That is akin to like maybe $1,200 a week.
It's almost double. Yeah. For a lot of cases, like people are not factoring for it, right? Like,
that's the type of money that would put you in foreclosure, and
of course,
if you don't refinance properly, and
well, it's not, you can't refinance properly. You don't have much of a choice.
Yeah,
the best of it is still going to be 3 to 4x more than you thought, right? So you're picking the best of a worst.
It's a scary situation. I mean, like, I've heard of different like theories about like, you know, JobKeeper being one of the reasons why we're in this mess that we're in right now, because that sort of gave this inflated figure of spending that, you know, the RBA used to justify those rates going up. But when we didn't actually spend as much as we did, and then now we're in this mess, and now everything's gone up, and now wages don't seem to be keeping up as well.
Oh, it can't. Well, if it does, then it's going to perpetuate inflation. But if you think of the average Joe Blow in America, you're right. Like the GFC was at a different scale, but it's very familiar to them. Again, we're getting to a presidency as well over there. Scared. Exactly. Yeah, you think. I mean, the thing is, if just say you own a pizzeria in bloody Brooklyn, you're a Joe Blow that just is not in the finance thing, and then you think, oh, they're gonna fuck me more. Yeah. Well, they're gonna increase tax, right? Like that's what's gonna happen. We're gonna help them. Why should I help them? I'm struggling to keep my business afloat. Much less bail out. Why don't you bail me out? I'm gonna need bailing out in 2 weeks' time because I can't keep up with the rent.
That
is the mentality that's going to happen.
Starts, right? Like, why are these tech companies getting bailed out? Not me.
Exactly. So, and where does it end? And again, play both scenarios out. If you don't bail these guys out, and I have no doubt that there's a level of corruption, you scratch my back because a lot of these tech companies there's a lot of that stuff.
There's a lot of
there's a lot of
interest from the government.
Exactly.
Tech industry. There's a lot.
But play it out there. If you don't bail them out, a lot of businesses don't exist, and these businesses have employees too, right? So the thing is, the decision made by one company or the leadership in one company.
I just don't think America can afford the tech industry to go into a crash.
No, I don't think so.
They can't afford it.
And I don't know if it's to that level, but again, the premier bank for this industry, again, and there's another bank actually that's dropped as well.
Yeah.
That they're going to prop up as well. And there's fears that this is just the beginning. And I think, again, people are triggered because they've seen versions of this. What's to say that this is not going to happen
with the other organizations? It's fascinating, right? Like, could the tech industry go into a crash from this?
We're in some level of, it's not a crash.
But it's declining, right?
It is. There's a contraction.
While all this is happening, there's like AI is to be like the next big thing.
Well, but like, I talked to a mate who's not in the tech industry. They haven't lost workers at all.
Oh, really?
They're hiring, if anything. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's only in the sphere that you're in. Because let's zoom out, man. Do you really need Facebook? Like, let's keep it real, right?
No.
Do I really need automated, like, to buy my groceries? No, you don't, bro. You don't. It's a luxury.
Yeah.
And when things get tough, you can't afford to cut away the luxury.
Yeah.
It is a luxury. Let's be very blunt about it. Maybe there's certain tech fields that blur that sort of line. But for, like, the big companies, Tesla's a luxury, man. Let's keep it real, yeah? Like, a Tesla car is a luxury, yeah? At this stage, it's a luxury. It's not core. Not core at all. So, of course, they're going to go contractionary when inflation rises up. When the cost of a damn banana is like $6, all right? Like, I can't deal with it. Now I moved on to bananas.
I love bananas, man.
Exactly. I mean, we were monkeys to begin with, all right? We need the damn bananas, all right? So, yeah, it's a tough one. It's an evolving situation, and we'll see. We'll see, because I think you're going to have a lot of people that are not going to be happy, and then you're going to have a lot of relieved people, and more importantly, what happens if there's only 2 reported at the moment, 3 or 4 of these? How long can you bail it out?
Then there's
how long is a piece of string? Right?
There's going to be some real, like, some scares of a tech crash.
Yeah.
And man, we cannot see that right now. With all that's going on, a tech industry crash would be devastating.
It's tough. All right.